This is meteorologist Kaylee Deanna. We have a lot going on in the tropics, so we're going to make sure to keep you updated as we move forward into the coming days. We have two storms that we have to talk about, and we have been talking about. So this is the 4 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center on Sunday, August 23rd, 2020. So if you are watching this and it's been several hours or it's the next day, you may want to look for updated information. But this is the latest at 4 o'clock in the afternoon from the National Hurricane Center for Hurricane Marco and Tropical Storm Laura. Still a tropical storm at this point because it's still interacting with land, but it has increased in intensity a tad. So I'm going to break these down both in Marco first, since it's going to be the first to make landfall, and then we'll go to Laura second, and we'll go over all the details for you. So here's just a look at the tropical satellite and radar we'll put on where each is located at this point. You can see that Hurricane Marco in the heart of the Gulf of Mexico, which we'll talk about coming up in a second, is a bathtub for fuel for these hurricanes. So once they reach the Gulf of Mexico, they intensify very rapidly because that warm water helps them to intensify. So that's why we've seen Tropical Storm Marco go from tropical storm to a hurricane since it's moved into the Gulf of Mexico. So this storm, it's a Category 1 storm at this point. If we go over the latest, we have 86-degree temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico right now. That is 2 degrees above normal for this time of year. So that's not good when you want that hurricane to not continue to intensify. So that comes into play not only with Marco, but also with Laura, and Laura even more now with the change in track. Hurricane Marco Category 1, the latest at 4 p.m. advisory is 75-mile-per-hour winds. We have gusts at about 90 miles per hour. So you have to have at least 74-mile-per-hour winds to be considered a hurricane. So it's a low Category 1. Either way, still very strong winds, and we'll continue to keep this intensity until it gets close to land. Once it starts to get a little bit closer to land, the models do show that Marco starts to lose some of this intensity, and that comes into play on why we've seen his track change. It changed a lot in the last couple of hours, and we'll talk about why it's changed, but it's currently moving to the north-northwest at about 13 miles per hour. So it's only about 240 miles south-southeast of the mouth of the Mississippi River. So it's getting closer and closer, and will make landfall as we go into Monday afternoon. If we look at the track here, this is the latest track. It looks a little bit differently. If you watch it as we move forward into Monday afternoon, it does look to start to take a shift to the north-northwest. So you see it starts to take that westward tilt there. So this is kind of good news for New Orleans, but still they're kind of under the gun for that storm surge, because if you're on the eastern side of the storm surge is going to be the worst. But 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so it looks like it, at this point, could make landfall or skirt right along the coastline for the entire length of the Louisiana coastline. So this has changed quite a bit, because what happens with this storm, models are showing that Marco weakens. And when that happens, you'll notice that the eye kind of wobbles a little bit and kind of recycles itself. And that can change the path of the storm. So we really have to watch and see exactly when that happens. Does it make landfall, or does it stay right along the coast and move toward the Texas and Louisiana state line? So we're really going to have to watch that. And that's going to be something that we're going to have to watch up until tomorrow afternoon, really, as it gets closer to the coastline and starts to weaken. Either way, we are going to see strong winds, quite a bit of rainfall, and also some life-threatening storm surge out of the storm. Either way, whether it stays a Category 1 or makes landfall as a tropical storm. So Category 1 hurricane by Monday afternoon. Once it does interact with land, it is going to rapidly kind of fall apart. So that's some good news with Marco. Marco's not going to sit around for a long period of time. So devastated flooding, that's not something we're looking at. But there are hurricane warnings and watches currently for the Louisiana coast, all the way to really the Mississippi coastline to the Mississippi-Alabama border. There's a hurricane warning in effect. There's a hurricane watch, which is in yellow for other parts of the Louisiana coastline. Now, what the main concerns are going to be with this storm, damaging winds, because we are going to be seeing wind gusts anywhere from 60 miles per hour to 75 miles per hour, gusts even more than that. Heavy rainfall, flooding possible, but it's really going to be the storm surge. And storm surge is the main concern with with hurricanes or tropical storms, because what you're dealing with here is the wind with the system pushing that water on land. So it pretty much makes spots along the coastline part of the ocean. So when we're talking about storm surge and just how high that water is going to get, we're talking 2 to 4 feet for locations along the Louisiana coastline from the Texas-Louisiana border all the way to really where we start to get closer to the mouth of the Mississippi. So then you have 4 to 6 in red, and then for the Alabama coastline going toward the Florida and Alabama state line, you also have 2 to 4 feet for storm surge. So you also have to think about when there's going to be high tide when you're talking about storm surge. So high tide for these locations is going to be Monday morning and Monday evening. Both time frames will be when the water is going to be the highest. So if this storm skirts along the Louisiana coastline and moves to the west, this is going to keep that storm surge being an issue longer. And that's why I'm a little bit more concerned with the storm surge here with this system. Even though it is going to be weakening, it's going to continue to skirt along the coastline and create more and more storm surge for some of these same locations. So it's something that we'll have to watch. It is going to be really important to keep an eye on here. If we get in a little bit closer with Marco, you can see if it makes that turn, where you look at for the highest storm surge is going to be on the eastern side of the storm. So that keeps New Orleans under the gun for some problems. Then as we continue to watch it move along the coastline, it's just going to continue to push this rain all the way to the Texas and Louisiana border, I should say, push this ocean water. So this is not the best track. We would like it to just make a landfall and move on in, but this is the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. Now let's go ahead and talk about Laura, which I do think is going to be the stronger of the two storms, because now we're seeing a little bit more time in the Gulf of Mexico, and you want to limit the time in the Gulf of Mexico because of those warm waters that we talked about that are above average for this time of year. So right now, the latest from the 4 p.m. advisory is 60-mile-per-hour wind. So it has increased slightly in intensity despite the interaction with land. So this is a well-organized storm, but it's continuing to interact with land, and that will limit its intensification, at least until it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. It's moving to the west-northwest at about 21 miles per hour, and it has caused some major problems for the Dominican Republic in regards to flooding rain and strong winds. Same thing for Haiti. Now, as we move forward, Hispaniola and Cuba are going to be under the gun as we go into the day tomorrow, and we're looking at quite a bit of rainfall with this storm and strong winds. It's still a tropical storm, but watch this. As we move forward into tomorrow afternoon, it will emerge into the Gulf. So then it's in the Gulf of Mexico for most of the day Tuesday and Wednesday. Looks like a landfall as a Category 2 storm. And I don't want you to focus on exactly how strong the storm is, because there's still a lot of uncertainty. When you put any storm in the Gulf of Mexico, all bets are off. It could intensify quickly, and the longer it stays there, the farther west it moves, the stronger that storm could be. So right now, looking at a Category 2 storm at landfall going into Wednesday evening, overnight into Thursday. We'll continue to watch this. It could be anywhere between Wednesday and Thursday at some point, making landfall and then scooting up really right along the Texas and Louisiana border. This track is going to give North Texas, at least where I am, the best chance for any rainfall at this point, because Marco is going to stay well to the south. I want to show both storms at the same time. So what I want to point out with this is watch as we go into tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're looking at a landfall for Marco. We still have Laura over Cuba. It's not even in the Gulf of Mexico. So the talk of two storms in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time, that theory would go out the window, because Marco is going to be moving on to land before Laura enters the Gulf of Mexico. But they're still going to be interacting with some of the same locations, because now with Marco shifting west and moving, they're going to cross paths. So part of the Louisiana coastline and even part of the Texas coastline, if this track for Laura continues, will be impacted by both of these storms. Laura is going to continue to make landfall much quicker and scoot up toward the Memphis, Nashville area before it becomes a tropical depression. So it keeps its intensity a little bit longer. Marco's going to kind of fizzle out fairly quickly and just become an area of low pressure over South Texas. The time frame for Marco landfall and impacts will be Monday to Wednesday. Those are the impacts. Then for Laura, it'll be Wednesday through Friday that the impacts will be around for Texas, Louisiana, even into Mississippi and Arkansas as it makes its way farther to the north. So that is a look at the update for both Hurricane Marco and Tropical Storm Laura. This is the 4 p.m. update on Sunday, August 23rd, 2020. So again, remember to stay up to date because we will see changes, especially with Laura, considering there's still several days out. We won't really know, I don't think, the track of that storm until it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. Then we're going to have a better idea once it stops interacting with land. So of course, you can stay with WFAA for the updates as we move forward into the next couple of days.